Don't force it. That's it. That's the video in 3 words. Don't force it. Okay, you probably need some context. That would probably help. So, I came to the idea for this video whilst, I was playing ranked, because I'm playing some ranked in Valorant at the moment, looking to reclaim my immortal for this act. And, I've had some of those sessions where you can't hit any shots. And it's pretty evident, because as soon as you get into an advantaged fight that you've created and you're taking it because you know that it's a really solid fight and you don't get the kill, you miss the shots, or you got some freebies, people are running around and they're not even like looking at you and you're not hitting the shots. Like, these are moments where you're starting to realize that your aiming performance is off, because you're probably going to be in a player that has experienced yourself hitting those shots probably more commonly than not. So when you don't hit them, it feels pretty shitty because you expect to hit them. So that's where the first point of friction comes, and the first, essentially the decision point comes, that we have to sort of understand, hey, this is a moment that's happening right now and I need to kind of pay attention to this, because either what I do is I allow my brain to do the thing that it wants to do, which is to draw my attention, my mental bandwidth now to kind of go on to my aim, because I need to hit shots. And so if I focus more on this thing, then I will hit more shots. But that's not really the case. Actually, it's the opposite of what you want to have happen. And so this is why I'm saying we have this important juncture, this decision point, because as soon as you get enough misses, let's say, to be aware that, hey, my performance is below an average that I would expect for myself, you're gonna feel negatively towards that, because it doesn't align with your goals. No one likes performing poorly when it comes to the mechanics, because at the end of the day, it comes down to hitting the shots. It comes down to getting the kills and converting on the advantages that your good decision making, that your intuition, that your reads gave you. And if you can't convert on that, it's like, fuck, man, I've got all this good shit. I just can't like get past this level because I can't hit those shots. And how can I grow as a player if I can't hit there's a lot of reasons why you would feel negatively about missing shots. And so that's why I'm making this video, because it's actually something that's very important to understand how to deal with. And so I return to the opening 3 words at the beginning of the video. Don't force it. Now, again, why is it the case that we need to really apply this philosophy? Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that is the general notion. And the reason is because, again, what our brain is tricking us into thinking that we can do is that we can control our aiming performance and we can just make it better by focusing on it more. That is incorrect. That is the opposite of what actually is the truth. The truth is that, and I invite all of you to do this same exercise. Just imagine when you're playing your best. What is going on when that's happening? Now, by the way, I will mention as a side point, it is possible to over time with practice to actually become aware and have conscious awareness when you're playing your best as to what's going on emotionally, just physically, like all of the different things. You can be aware of all that stuff without actually disturbing the performance, but that actually does require a lot of practice and just skill with awareness, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I'm not going to necessarily advise that people learn how to do that, but what I will say is, and hopefully you can follow this example and it makes sense for you and your experience. When you are in this state where you are performing your best, you're generally going to be thinking of, okay, what's happening on the minimap? Where are my teammates positioned? What are my opponent's tendencies? What did they do in the last 3 rounds? I have like good level of detail because I have this good level of attention on all of these different details, and I'm factoring all that into my decisions. I'm communicating actively to my teammates. I've got the passive comms happening as well. Again, I'm looking at the minimap again. Okay, I'm looking at the decisions. I'm looking at the time on the clock. I'm trying to orient myself as a player in, what is my next decision? What is the play I'm trying to make? You're thinking about so many different things, and that is where your conscious attention should really be going, generally speaking. There is a level of intuitive information that's happening as well, where your intuition system, your expert intuition system, that kind of system 2 thinking in your brain is happening, and it's giving you feedback in these feelings. So what it's doing is it's kind of assisting that conscious process where it's giving you, just a hunch that this will be good, or that this thing feels good. That's our intuition talking to us. When something feels good, like sometimes you'll be watching a player and you'll be like, oh, he's hit the timing. How the fuck do you know what a timing is? But you're right though, right? Like you know it. And this happens all the time. That's your intuition. The other player, you can't see what the other player is doing, but your intuition is telling you that it's very likely that if you make this movement, that it will go beyond the expected play that the opponent is expecting from like a timing and positioning point of view. And so it becomes very likely that you're going to get a timing on them. Like your brain just knows that. And so this is all to say that when we're in our best performances, we are not thinking about the aim because firstly, when we're aiming our best, we don't aim our best by being conscious about our aim. We're the most conscious about decisions and what's going on in the game. And then we are allowing our intuition system, we're allowing ourselves to just react with our aim, to just have all that practice just come into play, all that technique work, all of that stuff just automatically happens. And that is what good aim, the top level aim, really looks like. So if we think about what is the opposite of that, well, the opposite is putting all of our attention into the aim. Okay, so I need to clarify focus plus aim, because I don't want anyone to come away from this video thinking that I'm advocating that you should not focus and that's how you aim good, because that's not true. You need to have focus. And one way you can look at it is this. We have energy, like you put fuel in a car, and then you put a driver in the car, and then the driver kind of decides how that energy is utilized, and the fuel is utilized by the system, right? Which is the engine, the combustion engine. So our whole way of thinking about this, I think, is similar. So we've got the energy, so our sleep and our nutrition, our exercise, all things that energize us. So we're kind of mentally, like our brain is kind of, it's got all that fuel. Then what we have to understand is, based on the task that we're trying to perform, whether it's aiming or decision making, whatever it might be, which, like, there's different systems in our brain. We need to have the right system doing the right thing. So what I'm generally talking about when we're having this overfocus problem is that when we start missing shots, we go into sort of panic mode, and we're so alerted to like, whoa, what the fuck? I got to hit some shots, bitch. And so suddenly all the systems are just piling on, like, okay, everything is going into this. I'm focusing everything on my aim. And now what you'll notice is you're sacrificing your ability to actually process all the stuff that's going on in the game, and the patterns, the tendencies of your opponents, all these different things, because all you're trying to think about is, I've got to hit shots, I've got to get kills, I've got to get my confidence back. And suddenly you're going to be a way worse player, and you're going to make way worse moves, and you're going to be in more positions of disadvantage, and you won't notice as many spots for advantage because you aren't having all your attention going to where it should be. So you have blind spots now. So this is what I'm trying to say, is that our kind of aiming gets hijacked by the friction that happens in the game. So another version of this is pressure. So if you're experiencing pressure, and that pressure forces a mental game leak to start really fucking with you, now you've got another form of resistance coming in, kind of just disrupting your kind of mental processes. And it's kind of analogous, honestly, in how you actually play an opponent in any sport, where when you're playing an opponent, you want to disrupt their processes, because that makes them uncomfortable, because they can't just execute what they had pre-decided to execute. And instead, now they've got to like figure out what's going on. They feel uncomfortable. It's harder to figure out what the right decision is. So now they're going to probably play worse because they're less comfortable. You are creating more openings by getting in there, all of the rest of it. So we just want to make sure, kind of going back to the point here, that our focus is not disrupted, and instead each of the systems is doing what it should be doing, which is why in this video I'm sort of trying to help you to understand not just what's going on, but some of the ways in which we can deal with it, so that instead of having our emotions be disruptive, having our attention get away from us, we can instead stay in the right place so we can make the recovery happen. Because largely speaking, you're going to be performing your best aim-wise when you get some confidence going. Well, confidence is going to be coming from the game. If you feel really dialed into the game, you're going to feel way more confident in how you can outplay your opponents, because you'll have, again, way more attention on the smaller details. Your decision-making will be higher quality. You'll be as ahead of like just taking fights and just like trying to get kills and engineer like a kill somehow. You'll in that way, just by forcing it, you'll instead try to figure out what are the best decisions that give me the most advantage. You'll play that out, not thinking that I need the kill, I need to hit shots, I need to do this, I'm trying to control for the outcome. No, you're not doing that. That is not where you're going to have your best performances when it comes to what you are capable of. So, circling this back again, don't force it. And the reason why, again, I'm repeating, don't force it, is because that is what your brain wants to do. Your brain wants to solve the problem of you missing shots and having lower confidence because of that, by taking a big swing, by forcing you to make a mistake, because it's not going to be the correct way to make a decision that's going to allow you to have most advantage, and then to keep your aiming just as this reactive thing. And so we need to retrain ourselves. We need to rewire ourselves to understand that when we're missing shots, it's okay. We can't control that. Our performance is a range. Sometimes we're going to be in a shitty part of the range. There is a lot of good reasons why your performance will be in the worst part of your range. Lots of really good reasons. You're tired. You're stressed, you've been working out too much, so your body's been in just too much of a stress state, you don't have enough recovery, you had an argument with somebody, emotionally something is bothering you. There are varying reasons why your brain is not able to fully focus. It's really late in the night, you're tired, you've been playing for too long. You aren't having a consistent quality of focus in the rounds that you're playing because of some other reason. There's lots of different reasons. You can actually work this out. You can come to most people think that they can solve inconsistency in the game. Inconsistency, I would say, is generally better solved out of the game, actually. You need to understand what's going on in the game to get that feedback, but generally it comes down to habits and practices outside of the game. Your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise, the time of day, how habituated you are to certain playing schedules, where in the day is your quality of focus the best, where is it the worst, what drains you, what energizes you, how do you understand all of your own performance, and all these things, the mindset, all these different things are things that are kind of outside of the game. It's got nothing to do with you actually playing the game or getting better decision making, getting better aim because of technique. No. We don't need that. That's not the problem that we're trying to solve. With consistency, usually I would say that consistency is actually an input problem from the sense of how energized you are, how much attention and focus you can have, and the mood as well as the mindset, all of these things. So that's something to think about oftentimes more so than is my decision making bad or is my aim bad. Again, these are kind of sweeping statements. It generally does depend on the player, of course. There are players that will have very glaring in-game issues that they're going to trip themselves over on. But I would say at the higher levels, when a lot of these basic things, there's no huge glaring problem, I would say a lot of issues actually more so commonly come from just the poor control and quality of the stuff outside of the game. And it is the variance of your emotions, of your energy, of your schedules, of your approach, of your intention, of your mental prep, all of these things that instead creates the errors. And this goes to a concept that I talked about a long time ago, which is I came up with this a long time ago to help myself figure out how I could improve by kind of just breaking stuff down a little bit. And I came up with 4 pillars of esports performance. You got the mechanics, you've got the decision making or theory, you've got the mental stuff, and you got the physiological stuff. And it's actually often the case that you'll see the mistake in the mechanics, it's a missed shot, or you'll see the mistake in the decision that was made. But in reality, it's probably actually a mental game problem that created the error, that forced the error, that forced you to miss the shot because your attention wasn't fully there, and so your performance was worse. Why is that? Were you distracted? Were you disrupted, as we kind of brought up? And that can impact both of those things, either shots, or it can be the decisions that you make, poor decisions, because your head's just not fully in the game. So I would say, again, for the players that are at the higher levels, players that generally have really good decision making on average, players also that have good mechanics, it's probably going to be an issue more so on the mental game side of things or more so on the physiological side of things, because either you're not fueling up your vehicle correctly, or it's going to be the case that the systems that you've been practicing and you've been putting in place to have good performances are otherwise disrupted. And so that's actually what's going on, even though what it looks like is, it's a missed shot, it's a bad decision, so those are the problems. No, that's actually not often always going to be the case, especially at the top level where all of the players are pretty goated. All right, so we know that we don't want to have our attention go onto our aim. Instead, what we want to do is we want to have like two different things that we're thinking about. Number one is, okay, is there an emotional problem? Is there an emotional component that we have to deal with first? Because we've got to reground ourselves. We've got to reset ourselves mentally to make sure that we are able to have high quality and the most energy and focus and attention that we can throw at our performance. If we are distracted because of the emotional aspect, we've got this mental game leak, or we're just fucking pissed for some reason, or sad or irritated. All of these things can happen. Instead of finding outlets that are inappropriate for this, such as like blaming teammates or coping in some other way internally, just like shutting down, like just this, instead of all of that rubbish, what we want to do is we want to think, okay, let's ground ourselves. I can't control my performance and I'm missing some shots. So there's nothing I can actually do about this. But what I can do is I can continue to be as dialed into the game as possible. And I know to give myself the best shot at a recovery, because of the example we even went through, I know that if I try to kind of fake it till I make it kind of thing here, okay, fuck the aim. Let's just focus on continuing to make good decisions. Let's feel good about making good decisions and calming and staying dialed into the game. That's the standard I want to set. I want to be consistent with this. And what you'll find is, if you don't allow the emotions to affect you, because you're grounding yourself, you're resetting, you're dealing with them, you're placing it all in a context that makes sense, then what you're able to do is you're able to just be like, okay, yeah, it's fine. So I feel fine about this. I feel okay about this now. So now we're emotionally reset. So now we have the full force of our attention and focus to go into the problem. Now, if let's say you are playing at 3 a.m. and you've been playing for 14 hours, I mean, you're probably, somewhat fucked, because you're just so tired at this point. So it's really all over the place. But assuming that we're not sort of in that state, and we're kind of maybe at the beginning of our playing session, whatever it is, you stand a really good chance at actually making a recovery at some point. So long as you don't let it get to you, you can make a recovery. But this is the point I'm trying to drive home here, is that if you allow the emotional stuff to continue on affecting you, you will not make a recovery, really. You're not going to get to your best quality performance in the session. So the session is actually kind of becoming wasted at this point. So you don't want that to be the case. So let's rewire ourselves. Let's, reset, mentally reset on the situation. Let's reframe the situation. We understand this, we're in our performance range and it sucks, but that's okay. We're teaching ourselves that it's actually the best decisions that should make us feel good. It's like calming well that should make us feel good. It's like staying active that should make us feel good. And then with all of our attention on that, we won't really think the aim is that big of a deal. Even if you continue to miss, that's fine. Let me throw another wrinkle into this as well. You also might be missing shots because you also might not be getting a lot of good spots. And that can also happen too. But our brains want to make us feel like victims a lot of the time, where, we're not getting good spots. And instead of just accepting the reality, hey, yeah, I haven't really had any good spots this game. And that's okay. I'm not going to sometimes. Or sometimes it'll be like, oh my God, the opponents are just hitting everything. Eventually they'll probably start to miss, or maybe they won't. But the thing is that we just need to accept what's going on. So, we need to practice acceptance here. And that's really, really helpful, because if we're able to accept the situation for what it is, we're then able to just basically just maximize whatever we do get. When we do get a good spot, we're going to play it hopefully well. And what we're hopefully not going to be doing, because we've mentally reset, we won't have that added pressure, because you'll find, and I think a lot of people have experienced this, when you're in a game where you feel like your performance isn't going very well, and you're very starved of good spots to play out, as soon as you do get a spot, it feels so important, because you've had almost none in the entire game, and so that means you're probably losing as well. So it puts all this pressure, because this is such an impactful moment. This is like the one moment in the game that you've had where you can have impact and feel good about yourself if it goes well, and maybe turn the tide for the team and get the morale going, and then everyone's going to rejoice, and it's going to be flip the match, and everyone's going to be coming back. There's like a lot of pressure because of how starved you've been. Now, again, if we're in this mode of thinking where we're going round by round, We're trying to make the best decision. We're not thinking about the aiming outcome. We're just not thinking about it. All we want is to keep putting ourselves in advantage. I know if I'm putting myself in advantage again and again and again, eventually, numbers-wise, it's going to work out for me. And we're going to be in a good spot. And you'll probably have less pressure on you, and you'll probably perform better because of having less pressure on yourself. So again, this is the power of kind of rewiring ourselves and making sure that we're not, again, there are things we are not able to be in control of, but there are mechanisms we can use or tools we can use that can impact at least our internal experience, because you can't impact like what's going on in the game, how other people are playing, all these different variables. You can't control that. And you also can't, you're a human being. You can't control your performance either. But there's a lot that we can do to set ourselves up. And so if you do a good job with all the mental stuff, the emotional stuff here, you rewire some of these things in your brain, you're going to be in a good spot. So again, we're going back to not forcing it at this point. We're not trying to force the outcome of controlling our aim. Instead, we're setting ourselves up. We're minimizing the downsides. We're rewiring the bad thought patterns that our brain kind of tricks us into thinking that this is good. And we're instead creating ourselves the best opportunity for a recovery. And we're also creating the potential for a higher quality session, because we're just generally improving how we think and approach things. So with all that said, I wish you all luck on your journey to improve as players. Remember that when you're missing shots, the worst thing that you can do is to start over focusing on your aim. Don't do it. Your brain wants you to do that, but what you need to do is focus on the decision making instead, on the comms, on staying dialed into all the details in the game and being active problem solving. If you're complaining, if you're whining, if you're blaming, if you are feeling sad for yourself, if all these things, okay, I said I was going to end the video, but come on, let's just look at this real quick, because this is a common thing that people do. Firstly, what does it say about you? So, by the way, in asking these questions, I'm not accusing you, whoever mysterious viewer who you might be. I'm not accusing you of any of these things, but I want to throw this out there for all of us, myself included, because we're all human beings. We're all susceptible to these ways of thinking, and it is only through sort of just recognizing it, having that awareness when it's happening, and then also trying to do some of that work, figuring out what should I do when I later experience this thing, so that I can help myself in the moment and then become better for it, right? That's what we want to do. So that's why I'm bringing this up, because all of these things I started to say, these negative outcomes, how we might end up, essentially affecting our teammates, making them play worse, making ourselves play worse, emotionally feeling shitty about ourselves, all these different things. It's all very unhelpful. And it means that, okay, let's look at what it means. It is kind of weak, actually. It's weakness, because what's happening is you're experiencing a difficult scenario, and instead of saying, instead of meeting this obstacle and being like, fuck this obstacle, I'm going to go right through it, I'm going to go around it, I'm going to find a way to solve this problem, I am able to deal with this, I am capable, I'm going to take ownership of this shit. Okay, it's not going well, okay, fucking good, let's fucking deal with it, let's find a new way to this is a challenge, all of these ways of thinking that are very positive and strong. This is strength. This is how you overcome things. You cannot overcome a thing without strength. And if you have weakness, you will succumb to the thing. And so it is an act of succumbing to becoming negative, to again, whining, blaming, all these different things. This is weakness. If we're in a competition, it is the people that have the strongest approach in terms of their mental and their practice and how they tackle adversity. These are the people that succeed, because no one is going to be in a position where they're going to be free of adversity. The adversity is built into the system of competition. That is important, because competition, it is a meritocracy. The better people win, the people that have more skill. And to get more skill, you have to grow. And how do you grow? You grow by experiencing stresses, by experiencing resistance you can't currently lift, and you get strong enough so you can lift it, and then you find something else that's hard, that's so hard that you can't currently deal with it. You figure out how to deal with that, you overcome that, and then with that strength you go on to the next thing. If you're going to just succumb to the first obstacle, or just any obstacle, then you are stuck at that point. That is a thing that's going to stick. You're going to be stuck there. if you want to like make movement on your performance range, I realize I'm doing like a second video here, but fuck it. If you're looking at your performance range, if you want to change that range, if you want to tighten up that range, if you want to increase the ceiling, if you want to push that floor closer to your ceiling, you are doing so every single time you work on something that you're bad at or that you are currently weak at, or like with the weakness thing, just think of it like the gym. Like, I think it's a pretty good example that, hey, there are certain muscle groups that are lagging behind. Well, I'm going to go work on those so that no longer is that like the weakest chain in the link, and now I'm going to kind of push all these weaknesses and then get my floor closer to my ceiling. Now my natural strengths, I'm going to increase those. Now I'm going to make my weaknesses and figure out what those are. Okay, I'm going to push those up. Okay, I'm going to increase my natural strengths, and then that's how you improve. That's how it works. And the consistency is how tight this range is. If you can have this range really tight, that your worst performance is really close to your best performance, that is the ideal way to improve and be consistent. Is to kind of like get to that point. And so I've done like, dude, it's all this stuff is really connected, and I'm just kind of riffing and jamming him, and I guess I'll sign off with that one. So yeah, we'll go back to that first, the first 3 words. Don't force it. Do all of the right things. Control the things you can control. And then take the pride when you actually overcome things. That's the reward, in my opinion, is when you are able to overcome things. So I'll bring it back to the 3 words. Don't force it. So don't force the outcomes. Instead, control what you can control and accept the things you can't, and try to work on overcoming the obstacles in a way that is productive. All right, I'll leave it there. Cheers, guys. See you on the next one.